Chapter 11. Carry on here with the miracles of Jesus Christ according to the Gospel of John. The Gospel of John is very specific in what it was written, how it was written, to whom it was written. And it was, if you looked at chapter 20, you would see that the Gospel of John was written, verses 30 and 31, and many other signs truly did Jesus in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written that ye might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing ye might have life through his name. Lots of people recommend that if you gave a Bible to a new person who doesn't know the Lord, then it's recommended a lot of times to start with the Gospel of John, because the Gospel of John was written to lead somebody to Jesus Christ. And so we've been looking at the signs that are in here in the Gospel of John, and there's 7 of them. And we've gone through 6, so this is the 7th one right here. And I don't think we're going to be done, because I'm going to find an 8th, which is, of course, the ultimate sign, which is the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So I'm going to conclude it with that, but this is the 7th one. And if you notice, we're only in chapter 11, and that's because the rest of this book deals with the final week of Jesus Christ. From basically chapter 11 on, chapter 12 starts that what we call the triumphant entry into Jerusalem. And from that on, it's just that final few days of Jesus Christ's life, and it's just a lot of discourse, a lot of Jesus Christ's final teachings that he gave to his disciples. Now, John 11 is this wonderful story of Lazarus. Oh, I should have sang that other song. I didn't even think about that. I don't like it, so I'm glad I didn't sing it. But you ever hear that song? One day 4 men brought a crippled man to Jesus, still and lifeless he laid upon his bed. And I don't know the rest of it. Or else I sing it, but I don't know the rest of it. It has like 7 verses, and it has 7 keychains in every verse. Or it has a key change on every verse. And I can't believe I'm doing. All right, so the story about lowering the man through the roof, and the story is like no one believes that they could heal this man, and so they ask somebody, if they could heal him, and this man's like, well, I don't know. I came to Jesus Christ like when I was blind, and Jesus healed my blindness, but I don't know if he could heal somebody like that. Is how verse 1 goes. And then verse 2 kind of goes like they brought it to a leper, and then they said, and the leper is like, well, I came to Jesus Christ as a leper, and Jesus healed me, but, this guy looks pretty bad. I don't know if Jesus could heal somebody like that. That's verse 2. And I think verse 3 goes with the lame man, and then verse 4, they approach Lazarus. And verse 4, they go up to Lazarus, and Lazarus says, wait, my name, then the chorus goes, my name is Lazarus. Oh my goodness, that was where my name is Lazarus. I can't get the keys there. Could I testify my name? That's because I didn't do the key changes, 7 of them as it scales up. My name is Lazarus. It feels good to be alive. When I was bound in death and sin, this man came called Jesus. Brought me in. If you think your little problems are too big for him to solve, just take it from the one who's seen the mighty work of God. I'm a living testimony of his death-defying touch. My name is Lazarus. Okay, can I move on? It's a good song. It's a good story. I should have preached that story rather than sing it. That's a better preaching thing than it is singing thing, I think. But did you get it? They brought it to this one guy. He's like, I don't know. But then they came to Lazarus, and Lazarus was like, hey, what do you mean, can God do it? He raised me from the dead. If he raised me from the dead, he can heal this person who can't be carried in, or has to be carried in through this through the roof, Oh, and that's what it is. The 4 guys carrying it. They're asking the 4 guys who was carrying that man's bed. That's what they were doing. They're asking the first guy who carried it, the second guy who carried it, the third guy who carried it, and it happens to be that 4th guy was Lazarus who was carrying it. Okay, now you got to go listen to the song. I've spoken too much about it. You got to go listen to it on your own. My name is Lazarus. John 11. Certain man was sick, named Lazarus, of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. It was that Mary which anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus is sick. Therefore his sister sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. When Jesus heard that, he said, this sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. And when he had heard, therefore, that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. And after that he saith to his disciples, Let us go into Judea again. And his disciples say unto him, Master, the Jews of late sought to stone thee, and goest thou thither again? And Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there is no light in him. These things said he, and after that he saith unto them, Our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go that I may awake him out of sleep. He said his disciples, Lord, if he sleep, he do well, he shall do well. Howbeit Jesus spake of his death, but they thought that he had spoken of taking rest in sleep. And said Jesus unto them plainly, Jesus is dead, or Lazarus is dead, I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, to the intent you might believe. Nevertheless, let us go unto him. And said Thomas, which is called Didymus, and his fellow disciples, Let us also go, that we may die with him. Then when Jesus came, he found that he had been laid in the grave 4 days already. I don't know how that timeline works, where they were located, but they heard he was sick. In verse 4, he waited 2 days, and then he travels there, and he'd been laying in the grave 4 days already. So either he was 2 days away, or their preparation took a day, or something. But he had been dead, or maybe it was a day's journey, because maybe the guy took a day to go send him the news, and then they waited 2 days, and then they traveled a day. I guess that would make sense. But he's 4 days in the grave already. And Bethany was nigh to Jerusalem, about 15 furlongs off. And many of the Jews came to Martha and Mary to comfort them concerning their brother. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him. But Mary sat still in the house, and said Martha unto Jesus, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. But I know that even now, whatsoever thou wilt ask of God, God will give it thee. Jesus saith unto her, Thy brother shall rise again. And Martha said unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. And said Jesus unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. Believest thou this? She saith unto him, Yea, Lord, I believe that thou art the Christ, the Son of God, which should come into the world. And when she had so said, she went her way and called Mary, her sister, secretly, saying, The Master is come and calleth for thee. And as soon as she heard that, she arose quickly and came unto him. Now Jesus was not yet come into the town, but was in that place where Martha met him. The Jews then, which were with her in the house, comforted her when they saw Mary. She rose up hastily, and went out and followed her, saying, She goeth unto the grave to weep there. When Mary saw where Jesus was, when Mary was come where Jesus was and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying unto him, Lord, word for word, what Martha said. All right, word for word. Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. When Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews also weeping, which came with her, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled, and said, Where have ye laid him? And they said unto him, Lord, come and see. Jesus wept, and said the Jews, Behold how he loved him. And some of them said, Could not this man, and this is going to be our proof text right here, this is going to be our theme text, could not this man, which opened the eyes of the blind, have caused that even this man should not have died? Jesus therefore again, groaning in himself, cometh to the grave. And it was a cave, and a stone lay upon it. And Jesus said, Take ye away the stone. And Martha, the sister of him that was dead, saith unto him, Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he hath been dead 4 days. Jesus saith unto her, Said I not unto thee that if thou wouldest believe, thou shouldest see the glory of God? And they took away the stone from the place where the dead was laid. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me, and I knew that thou hearest me always. But because of the people which stand by, I said it, that they may believe that thou hast sent me. And when he had thus spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was bound about with a napkin. Jesus saith unto them, Loose him, and let him go. That many of the Jews which came to Mary and had seen the things which Jesus did believed on him, but some of them went their ways to the Pharisees and told them what things Jesus had done. And then the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered a council. And isn't it funny that, that's a pretty big sign, I think, don't you think? Guys, they've gathered together, they've held their ceremony, they've all wept, they've all wailed, they've put the man in the grave, and I don't know, Ukrainians, they gather handfuls of rocks and dirt rather. They gather handfuls of dirt. They throw it on the tomb or on the casket. They close it up. They seal it. They've walked out. They've been away. And it's 4 days later, and Jesus resurrects that guy out of the grave. That's a pretty big miracle. And what do the chief priests and Pharisees do? They gather a council and they say, "What do we do? For this man doeth many miracles. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him." You get it, right? That people that say, "Oh, if God would just show me a sign from heaven." Oh, we're at the 7th one in this book. And this is a pretty big one. And they said, he did this sign. We acknowledge that he did this sign. We're not rejecting this sign. We're not trying to argue away this sign. We're saying he can't be let loose because all men are going to turn to him and believe. A man's heart, if it's going to be hard, it's going to be hard no matter what you do. You following that? Yep. Your approach to God depends upon your heart attitude to God. And if you got a heart that's ready to hear and ready to follow, ready to believe, ready for God to correct you, guide you, change you, that's where you start. Okay, if your heart's hardened, you're going to have a hard time. And that's where these men were at. And then I'm not going to read the rest of it, but this miracle of Lazarus here, looking at this verse down in verse 37, could not this man, some of them said, could not this man, which opened the eyes of the blind, have caused that even this man should not have died. So, Lord, I love you, and I just want to say thank you for this wonderful passage of John 11. Thank you for the miracle of raising Lazarus from the dead. And, Lord, thank you for all these lessons that we get to learn and this excitement to see, Father, that even death is no barrier for you and for your power. And, God, help us to see you. Help us to answer these questions. Help us to know you personally because of this testimony of this man, Lazarus. Lord, we love you. And in Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen. So one lady here, Martha and Mary, both of them came to Jesus Christ, and they both said, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. All right? They both of them said that. Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. Well, I wanted to look at this question. We read the whole story. It's more than we normally would. But I want to look at this question. Lord, could not this man, which opened the eyes of the blind, have caused that even this man should not have died? Could not this man? You know, I want to give a couple hypotheticals about Jesus Christ here. Could not this man? What could Jesus Christ have done that would have totally changed the story? And I want to go all the way back up. There's some things Jesus Christ could have done very differently. And if you want to go all the way back up maybe to around verse 6, you could start there. You could say, you might be reading this passage, and you might say to yourself, well, why did Jesus Christ do that in verse 6? It says, when he had heard, therefore, that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. Why did Jesus Christ do that? You know, the first thing he could have done is he could have gone right away. He didn't have to wait 2 days. Hey, this is my friend Lazarus. And I'm going to go right away because my friend Lazarus, and he loved him, he loved Lazarus. He says, my friend Lazarus is sick, he needs me, I'm going to go. That's what he could have done, right? Well, I want to point this out. I'm going to point out a couple things here. One thing I want to point out is that Jesus knew that if he had been in the grave 4 days already, right, Jesus knew that Lazarus, essentially he died right after that messenger left the house. It's kind of what we're getting at. And so Jesus already knew what no one else around there knew. And he knew that it was already too late for that part of it. Right? Jesus Christ already knows the future. He knows the past. He knows the present. And even though you can't see it, and even though the messengers couldn't see it, and if you could imagine being a disciple here, you could imagine being a Peter or a James or a John and one of them being right there with Jesus. And they see this man, this messenger run up and just out of breath and excitement. You know, that kind of excitement where it's just like, you got to come, you got to come, you got to come. Lazarus, he's sick, he's dying, he's at the point of death. There's no hope. The doctors gave him no help. There's no remedy. There's nothing. All we got is you, Jesus. You got to come. You can just see that adrenaline in his eyes. And if you're one of them disciples and you're like, Let's go pack the bags. We'll get our suitcases. We'll get our horses. We'll get our money. Let's go. We're going to go, right, Lord? And Jesus is like, 2 days. Well, let's wait. Let's wait. What's going to be your reaction? You're going to be like, Lord, what are you doing? And that's kind of the reaction we do all the time. Could not this man? Shouldn't we have gone right now? And you have to kind of realize that once you know the whole story, you realize that Lazarus was already dead by the time that basically they got the news. You got to realize that you don't know the whole story. Right? Some things just happen and you're just like, I don't know what's going on. Well, that's the point. You don't know what's going on. And sometimes Jesus does these things here where he's waiting 2 days and you're just like, why is the Lord waiting 2 days when this guy clearly he loves him and he could do something and he has done things and he can heal? Why doesn't the Lord do something? So, could not this man? Well, didn't he have to go? Well, shouldn't he have gone? And I want you to know kind of why. And you have to kind of think big picture, timeline. Why? Because it says that he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was, and you kind of got to sit back and you got to think, where's the Lord right now? Well, the Lord's up in heaven. Jesus Christ is up in heaven. How long has he been up there? Well, since Acts chapter 1, he's been up there. Acts chapter 1, well, that was roughly, 33 AD. That was roughly 2,000 years ago. Right? And a day with the Lord is as 1,000 years. So the Lord drops these little kind of picture knowledge bombs in the passages like this all the time. He abode for 2 days still in the same place because he's kind of meeting a picture here where we've had how many millions of Christians that have called out to God to come heal them and to come save them and to come rescue them from how many Christians have been persecuted and killed and put their head to a sword and been drawn through the stake and put hot irons onto their body and had them be pulled apart from their arms and their legs and be quartered and horsed by what they used to do in the torture sessions, and how many have been drowned, and how many today get killed by their families because they convert to Christianity from a Hebrew family or from a Judaism or from a Muslim family. How many get persecuted on today's day and age without seeing Jesus Christ's hand at all? And they're saying, Lord, couldn't you have even saved this? Could not this man? Couldn't Jesus Christ come down and save me here? The answer is yes. But not according to his plan. See, he builds his plan, and his plan is that he's going to abide 2 days in the same place. His plan is that he's up in heaven, and he was there in 500 AD when he was there, in 100 AD when the Caesar started to kill all the Christians hardcore, and he was there in 500 AD when Europe started to persecute the Christians, and he was there in 1000 AD when they persecuted them even more, and he was there in 1500 AD when the Huguenots and across Europe there was an anti or a counter-reformation that Christians were killed wholesale by the Catholic Church as they tried to slaughter everybody that was against them so they could try to recuperate and bring the church back to itself. The Lord was there at all those times. What was he doing? 2 days abiding still in the same place where he was. Right? What a great picture that is, but that's not all of it, because that just gives us an understanding that the Lord's up there, but there's a whole lot more, okay? Because the story doesn't stop there, because we get on reading here, it says that he abode there when he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. Well, I remember he could not have gone, what else could he have done? Could not the Lord? Well, he could have gone right away to make everyone happy. He could have not gone. Right? Verse 8, it says, his disciples saying to him, Master, the Jews of late sought to stone thee, and goest thou thither again? His disciples tried to talk him out of going. He could have not gone. I seem to remember a different story in the Bible where the ruler of the temple came to Jesus, and he said, I have a servant who's sick. And Jesus is like, I go. And that ruler stopped him, and he says, I'm a man, a centurion. He says, I'm a man of authority, under authority, and I know all that a man in your position has to do is just say the word only, and your servants go do it, and things are taken care of. All you got to do is say the word, and I know that my servant's going to be healed. And so Jesus, from a distance of how long? A couple miles? It wasn't well out of earshot. He just said a word, be healed, be thou healed, and that man was healed of the disease from that very hour. Jesus could have taken care of this from a distance instead of going and risking being captured, caught up in a mob. He didn't have to waste his time to go over there. Right? What could Jesus have done? Well, you're kind of getting a little bit of a picture of what ministry is, of what servanthood is, and of what Jesus Christ was all about here, because Jesus Christ, he says this several times. And verse 4 is kind of the key to introducing the passage. Jesus, he knew what it was this whole time, and it says down in verse 4, in verse 3, Lord, he whom thou lovest is sick. Well, verse 4, when Jesus heard that, he said, this sickness is not unto death. Presumably, he's dead at this very moment when he was speaking. This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. You get the whole point of this whole story is so that Jesus Christ could be glorified and so that people could believe on him. Right? If Jesus had gone right away, like he heard the news and he's just like, okay, let's go. And if he left right away and they get over there as fast as they can and they ride their Seabiscuit, or war horse, or what was those other speedy horses back then? War horse, I think, was one of them. An Imperium or something, I forget. There's a Secretariat. Thank you, that was actually the one I was thinking of. Thank you, I appreciate you being here today. Secretariat. He could have rode these fast horses and sprinted over there as fast as they could, and they got there and, oh no, he's dead. What are we going to do? He could have done that. How would that glorify God? Right? We're going to go right away. We're going to make it in time. We're going to save him. Oh no, we're too late. Where's the glory for God in that? He could have said a word from afar, and nobody would have known that it was the Lord who said that word to heal them. And then how would Jesus Christ have been glorified? The only person that might have known would have been that servant, but no one else would have known. And how would Jesus Christ have gotten glorified if he took care of the problem just like that from afar? We're kind of seeing the story here that the way that Jesus Christ gets glorified the most is when something happens at the absolute hardest, worst possible spot of your life. That's when the glory comes to God. What could Jesus Christ have done? Well, if we skip on down, we reread what Mary and Martha said, verses 21 and verse 32. Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. They believed. They both believed in Jesus Christ. They believed in his power. But they've never seen something like this before. Right? They've seen Jesus Christ heal sicknesses. They've seen Jesus Christ turn one substance into another. Right? They've seen Jesus Christ provide food, multiply bread, and take care of the need of all of the people that were there. They've seen Jesus Christ heal a blind man. They've seen Jesus Christ do so many things, but they've never seen this. And this is like the final miracle going into Jesus Christ's final week where he dies and he's buried and he rises again from the grave. And this is the final miracle. And this is telling us that there's something big about to happen, and Jesus Christ is the one who's able to do it. The Lord, if thou hadst been here, he had not died. And what could Jesus Christ have done? Could not this man, which opened the eyes of the blind and fed the 5,000 and turned the water to wine. Could not this man who's done all those things, couldn't he have even caused that this man should not have died? You know what else Jesus Christ could have done is he could have already been there in the town before he passed away and healed him. If this was like an inner disease, something, your bodies don't get sick overnight. If you have cancer or diabetes or, those things don't just happen overnight. Those things happen because you keep drinking Mountain Dew and coming home and eating ice cream every day and cookies and feeding yourself with poison day in and day out. Well, after 20 years of that, guess what? Guess what's going to happen? He's always so healthy. I can't believe he got sick. You get sick because it's in you when you're young, and you never take care of yourself to keep yourself healthy as you grow older, and so the sickness multiplies and grows. And then when you're 50, 60, 70 years old, after 30, 40 years of that sickness growing in your body, well, maybe that's what happened here with Lazarus. The last time Jesus Christ was with him, he knew about this sickness, whatever it was that was in him, and he could have laid hands on him then when no one saw it and healed him the previous time. And that would have been would that not have been a great work of God? But how could they have known what Jesus Christ did? They couldn't. Are you following me? How could they have known? What's the case where they would have known it beyond a shadow of a doubt what in the world this was? I'll tell you how. It's when Jesus wasn't with them, he was apart from them. They send a messenger and they say, you got to come quick. And so Jesus says, man, I'm my friend. I love my friend. I care for my friend. You know what I'm going to do? Is I'm going to sit here in 2 days and I'm going to wait before I head out just to make sure he's good and dead. Not just dead. I'm going to make sure he's long gone, good dead. And then I'm going to head on my way over there. I don't want there to be anybody to think, oh, maybe he just swooned and maybe he's just faking it. Because every now and then that did happen back in those kind of days. There's stories, you've probably read some, I know I've read some, where somebody's been buried alive and somebody passes out and their heart rate slows way down and their breathing slows way down and they wake up in a casket buried. Like 100, 200 years ago, stories like this have happened in America, around the world, and people would scratch their ways out. And it's scary stuff, man. Give you nightmares at nighttime. Well, they didn't want that to happen. So waited and waited and waited. And there's one more thing that Jesus could not have done. Or could not, this man. There's one more thing Jesus could have done as we get on down through the story. And we get on down here to verses 31, 32. Verse 33, when Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews also weeping which came with her, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled. That's a funny thing. He's not groaning in the spirit because he doesn't know what's going to happen. He's not at the funeral of his friend wondering, oh, why did we lose him? How come? Oh, I'm Jesus. I can do something about this. No. He's not groaning because it's like, there's Lazarus. He's like, if I understand the Bible right, if Lazarus is in Abraham's bosom at that point, well, Jesus Christ knows all about that. He knows where Abraham was. Or he knows where Lazarus is in the good place, the afterlife. Jesus Christ is probably there with him already. If I understand Jesus Christ is omniscient and omnipresent and everywhere, it's like Jesus is not surprised by this. He's not wondering about this. He's not weeping over the fact that his good friend has passed away. What's he weeping about? He's weeping about the people that are around him. He's being compassionate upon the men, women, children, lost, saved, believers, none. He's being compassionate upon this crowd around him that knew this man that was clearly loved by so many, and everyone is in deep depression, sadness, and mourning and crying, and it affected the spirit of Jesus Christ. He groaned in his spirit and was troubled. And where have ye laid him? And he said unto him, Lord, and see. And then there's that shortest verse. All kids quote for Bible verse memory verses points, John 11:35, Jesus wept. Well, yeah. Is that one of the only 2 times, according to my brain, my recollection, that Jesus wept? What was the other time? Well, it was Matthew 23 at the end of the chapter, when he stood over Jerusalem and he was saying how the city of Jerusalem would never repent and they'd never come to Jesus Christ. And it says over there, he wept over them. Jesus wept. Why did he weep? Then said the Jews, behold how he loved them. And then some of them said, could not this man which opened the eyes of the blind have caused that even this man should not have died? Jesus therefore again groaning in himself cometh to the grave. It was a cave and a stone laid upon it. Why did Jesus Christ groan? Well, I want to say this last final thing about what Jesus Christ could have done. Jesus Christ could not have cared. Jesus Christ could not have cared. The whole redemption of mankind is built upon the promise and the premise of, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Salvation is founded upon this one simple idea that God has compassion upon us. And I just want to say this, I'm not worthy, deserving of God's compassion. I have not lived a life that demands that the God who created me would also show compassion to me. I've lived a life where how many times over my 44 years where I've been in a place in a decision where I knew something was right or wrong, and I knew it was the right thing to do, or I knew it was the wrong thing to do, and I either did it or didn't do it, depending on what the wrong thing is. How many times has that been the case? And if I was to stand before a holy God and a God who's just, and if he was to hold up the book against me and ask if I wanted to be judged upon the book, then I deserve to be thrown into a devil's hell because of the times I've rejected and disobeyed and sinned against a holy God willingly. I don't deserve any of God's goodness and grace. What could Jesus Christ have done? Well, he could have just ignored everybody and walked away and not humbled himself and come and been more of a man. That's what he could have done. He could have just said, oh, I've told you 1,000 times. On 1,001, you're done. Well, okay, once it's 3 years old, and once every day, at 3 years old, you've done it every day of your life. So, see ya, gone. What could Jesus Christ have done? Listen, the whole premise of Jesus Christ being our Savior and what we're getting into with the final week when he dies on the cross is because of this right here. He groaned in his spirit and he had compassion upon everybody. A lot of times my love for my kids, like if they're doing something and they're struggling with something, a lot of times it'll be like, hey, that's mine. And he's struggling with it, so, I like to watch my kids struggle, don't get me wrong. That's how they learn, as they struggle. But I'm going to go help them. I'm going to go take care of this problem, and they're struggling with hitting a bat. Well, okay, I know how to hit a bat a little bit. Struggling with throwing a football. Well, I know how to throw a football a little bit. Struggling with working, struggling with figuring things out. Like, a lot of what I do with my own kids is I do it for them because I have a love for them and I want them to get it. Amen. And I don't just walk away from them when they're struggling with things, as I'm there for them. Well, in a sense, I'm not saying God's the father of everybody, because he's not your father unless you get saved, right? You got to get saved because he's father, but he did create everybody. And so at the very least, he saw his creation that was like struggling and impossibility. There were all of them had a lake of fire destination stamped upon their eternal passport. Every one of them, not a single one of them, had fulfilled the whole law in every single point, every day of their lives, without fail, from birth to death. And Jesus was up in heaven and knew this, but he knew that if he didn't have compassion, there was no hope for mankind. And he says he groaned in his spirit here when he's amongst this. He knows what's going to happen. It's all going to be for his glory. He's right there, but because of everyone else around him that doesn't know, Jesus is in the midst of them. It's impossible to have their spirit not affect your spirit. I mean, how many of you cry when you watch a sad part of a movie? My wife's like, no, you don't. Yes, I do. I just do it secretly so she can't see. They're dry tears. You're watching a movie, you know nothing. You don't know these people. And then somebody's brother dies who's like the main part of the story. And it's like right at the end, and you're just over there bawling in tears because this guy's brother, it's all fake to begin with. But the music and the setting, and they're making it so that you're just bawling along with them. It's impossible to be in the place where they've designed it to affect your spirit, and your spirit's just right there, it's hooked, right? Could not this man could have not cared. So what does this teach us about salvation? Well, it's all this. This man did care. He did come. He did wait. He didn't take care of the problem from afar in some way you couldn't see it. It was Jesus Christ ultimately came to the cross and hung naked upon a cross, became your sin very, very visibly, put on a very public display of showing you what salvation was. And he made this right here, this little thing right here. He took care of it, waiting for this guy to be dead 4 days before he came out to resurrect him and heal him. Because why? Verse 24, verse 25, I know, Martha said to him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection to the last day. And Jesus said in there, I am the door. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the good shepherd. I am the bread of life. I am the water for living, water of life. I am the resurrection and the life. I am. And I didn't know this going into when I was doing these studies of these 7 signs, but every single one of these signs culminated in a belief. Sometimes it was a belief on the words of God. Sometimes it was a belief on the person of Jesus Christ. Well, this one, what does it culminate in? It culminates in a belief. You're seeing this 7 times over and over and over again, that salvation, Jesus Christ is getting to where salvation, it's going to teach you about Jesus Christ's salvation. It's not works, it's not works, it's not works, it's not works. It's he did all the works, he paid the price. Your job is to believe. And that's what he says, I am the resurrection and the life. Verse 25, he that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? Belief. Verse 45, it says, at the end of this whole thing, it says at verse 45, many of the Jews which came to Mary and had seen the things which Jesus did believed on him. Verse 42, Jesus is praying to God the Father, and he says, I thank you that you heard me, although I knew you hear me always, but because of the people which stand by, I said it, that they may believe that thou hast sent me. And we look up way up in verse, what is it, 15 or so. In this context, our friend Lazarus sleepeth, verse 11, but I go that I may awake him out of sleep. Then said his disciples, Lord, if he sleep, he shall do well. Howbeit Jesus spake of his death, but they thought that he had spoken of taking a rest of sleep. And said Jesus unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead. And I am glad. See that? I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, to the intent ye may believe. So why did Jesus Christ wait? And that's it right there. Why did Jesus Christ wait for you? Why does he let you get into the deepest, worst position and sometimes even let some of his Christians die? So we believe. Right? Believe Jesus Christ is the resurrection and the life? Well, worst thing that's going to happen to you is you're going to get your life in a mess, and you're going to pass off into eternity, and you're going to die, and everybody's going to struggle, and that's the worst thing that's going to happen to you. And Jesus is still up there saying, I'm the resurrection of life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. I am the resurrection of life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Believest thou this? Yeah. So Lazarus is our seventh final sign, and it gets to deal with that great resurrection. The final victory is not of the devil is death and separating you from God and death. Well, that doesn't lose any power. It loses its whole power because of this last sign as it gets introduced into the person of Jesus Christ. Well, close out with this thing next week, and how these all tie into Jesus Christ is my idea, and we'll see how it goes. But Lazarus is your seventh sign.